Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another weekly fighting roundup, and of course got the boxing and MMA news. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So of course, starting off with the boxing news, and so Scotney versus Motu, Bellotti versus Gomez Jr., McCormack versus Herrera, Flint versus Hatton 2, Davis versus Lima, McGrail, Crawler, Clark, and Whitworth will fight October 26th, and I mean, it's great to see that there's actually a big kind of British boxing card that is coming together that isn't involving, Rietis and everything like that. Obviously, what they're doing is amazing, but just, it's nice to see a little bit of differential and then Matchroom cards still getting put on. And, when we've had just recently the kind of fall apart of the card with, it had just Johnny Fisher pull out with his fight versus Rudenko because of injury, stuff like that happening, and just the bigger cards in general kind of being lost from Britain. It's nice to see a card like this be made because there are some quality fights on it, and obviously the main event's going to be a great main event. But Scotney versus Motor, I'm really enjoying Scotney's development and the way that she's fighting at the moment. She looks unbeatable, but Moto, I've been saying for a long time now, has been deserving of a big world title shot. It's about her time, and yeah, I think she's going to come through and be a very tough test for Scotney. And Bellotti versus Gomez Jr. is also a great matchup as well. So, like I say, it's a very nice card, and hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing really bad happens to the card. Moving on, His Excellency wants pay-per-view prices to be below £20, which is amazing news, to be honest. I mean, hopefully no more of these like crazy £60 or anything like that kind of pay-per-views, and that it's great news, to be honest. I mean, it shows that he's trying to make it for the fans a bit more, and I mean, I don't necessarily know if he needs the money, but yeah, in general, I think it's great news, of course. And now it's making the AJ Dubois one, I think that's like £19. The Dubois, no, not Dubois, the Bivol Beterbiev one, I believe, is £15. So yeah, it's just amazing to see, to be honest. GBM Sports have partnered with Leeds Private Hospital. The WBC have made a new Tamaulipas 2 belt for Canelo versus Berlanga. It's another WBC belt, to be honest. There's a lot of them. Shimu Machi won via unanimous decision versus Sugawa to remain Japanese Boxing Commission Japanese Super Bantamweight Champion. Sasaki won via TKO round 7 versus Bala to remain Oriental and Pacific Boxing Federation and WBO Asian Pacific Welterweight Champion. Hirooka won by TKO round 9 versus Barroso. Takai won by unanimous decision versus Higa to remain WBO World Bantamweight Champion. Inoue won by TKO round 7 versus Doheny to remain IBF, WBC, WBA and WBO World Super Bantamweight Champion. And to speak about some of the fights and my general predictions and how they went, the Hirooka fight, the Sasaki fight was an interesting fight. I don't really think Sasaki looked amazing, but of course he managed to get a very good stoppage. Hirooka, that was a fight which had a bit of a slow start and was going into it a little bit, but in the end it was a good stoppage. And I got my prediction right. I did think that Barroso wouldn't be able to deal with Hirooka and the power and the timing that he has, and also the discipline that he has in his work. Barroso just doesn't and can't really give it as much as what I believe he used to, just because of age and things like that. And I mean, he's had a great career, and there's nothing to say that there's still something still possibly left in him. But for now, that was a fight which definitely shut him out. But I believe he's still interim champion. I don't believe Japanese boxing recognise interim champions, so he's still interim champion. To be fair to him, so that's still going to come with big fights coming his way. So I think it's a smart fight to take. That one was for him. The Takai one versus Higa, I got it wrong. I thought that Higa would win, and to be honest, he was looking like he was going to. Takai was lucky to an extent to be able to get the scorecards as unanimously as they were for him. I believe he would have won lost if he'd have not gone ready into the last round, which I respect. And you always want to see fighters really push into the last round, and he did that. And Higa, I think, was boxing well. I think he just slowed down a bit, and I thought he would have been able to give it for a bit longer, but he did seem to slow down. And Takai was coming into it into the later rounds, but was getting caught clean a lot of the time, in which I thought was going to happen, and being able to deal with the pressure in which Higa brings. He seemed like he struggled with that quite a bit. Do I think he can go on and unify the division or anything like that, or become undisputed? No, I don't believe so, to be honest. I don't think he's a strong enough champion, but he's proven, he's gotten his first defence out of the way now, so he's definitely on the right track with things. And then, of course, Inoue with another amazing performance against Doheny. A fight in which, to be fair, was going in an interesting way. I mean, Doheny was having success at times in the early rounds. He was being very awkward, not really going towards the pace and the rhythm in which Inoue wanted him to go, and not really giving them as much respect as what a lot of opponents do, just out of genuine pure fear. And the actual high-paced, exciting power shots in which Inoue throws, he wasn't really seemingly doing a lot of them or really needing to, and it just meant that Doheny was having success in rounds, even one round or two, and Inoue in general, like I say, he looked amazing, but it wasn't, he wasn't show-stopping, in which we often see from him. And, it seemed like he was coming into the rounds, and at the end of every round, pretty much he was having an absolute brutal flurry of shots in which he was throwing onto Doheny. And Doheny, I think it was a matter of time. He was looking tough, to be fair to him, but, I mean, it was a bit of a weird stoppage. Of course, he did his back and everything like that, and that shows, I suppose, the power in which Inoue throws, the body shots in which he does. But, of course, Inoue, another brilliant victory for him, and now progressing onwards. And it seems like the Goodman fight will be next. We will have to wait and see. Crocker will rematch Papadopoulos at November 30th. EBU have ordered McCann vs McGrail. Aaron wants Inoue vs Goodman December 24th, so seems like he wants that December 24th, which is, I think, a great matchup. If not, it'll probably be the Akhmadaliev one. But then after that, and he wants Inoue to fight in Las Vegas, I believe April 24th. So relatively regularly fighting, and it's nice to see that. And then I think he wants him to fight April 24th, but then hasn't really said who it's against, but he wants him to be on the same card as what I believe Nakatani is, to then build up a fight between him and Nakatani further along down the line, which is, of course, a massive fight, but we'll have to wait and see. That's a good few steps down the line, of course, before then. Eubank Jr. has signed Eubank has signed a multi-fight deal with Wasserman. Davis vs Lemos, Norman Jr. vs Cuevas, Mason, Isley and Davis will fight November 8th. I think that's a great fight, Davis versus Lemos, and I think I voiced this on my last one when it was a rumoured fight. Yeah, it's a brilliant fight. I think it's going to be a very tough test for Davis, and Davis has said that it's going to be a tough test, and he said that he picked his opponent and wanted a tough test, and like I mentioned, Lemos, after that Hitchens fight, proved a lot and showed a lot, and it's going to be very difficult for Davis to get through it, and is, I think, a very good fringe world level type guy for him. And then Norman Jr. is crazy. Norman Jr. was, of course, meant to be talked about having with the Ennis fight and everything like that, and now he's on an undercard when the main event isn't even a world title fight is crazy. And I understand wanting to keep him active and things like that, but at the same time, surely you got to take opportunities when they're there waiting available for you. And I'm sure the money still wasn't bad for that Ennis fight either way, but now he's on this card. Moving on, Shalom wants Whittaker to headline a show in December in America. Saunders in talks to rematch Eubank Jr. Matazaliev will fight Zhu October 19th. Azim vs Davis and TKV versus Ignatius will fight October 19th. I think that's an interesting matchup. It kind of caught me by surprise a little bit when I heard that was going to happen, but I think it's going to be a good matchup, to be honest. It's pretty much, in my opinion, what I think Azim needs, a very good progressive step. And of course, Davis struggled and was beaten badly against Barroso last time, but at the same time, he's still going to be very much there and still a fringe world level guy in himself. And so, it's about time that we are seeing Davis progress along as he is, which doesn't really surprise me with everything, with Riyadh season and everything like that. It's not surprising that boxers have basically been forced to make sure that their big names, their big fighters are actually finally getting big fights. Moving on, Takam will fight Schwartz October 19th. Rosado, Chaparro and Rivera vs Beltran will fight October 11th. Fischer vs Rudenko, like I say, is off. McCrory will fight Carrillo November 1st. Rivera, Rosado and Chaparro have joined Most Valuable Promotions. White has called out Shizora. Bahachuk is set to fight Madrimov December 21st, which I think is an excellent matchup after two guys who, just fell short after big fights against two of the best guys in their division. I think that's a brilliant matchup, and I think it would make for an excellent fight. I'm not too sure who would win. I believe it is a bit of a contrast in styles, and I think it would gel for a great fight. Ochoa won by decision versus Sargulia. Ortega won by decision versus Sant. Cuesta won by decision versus Lorza. Rodriguez won by decision versus Mercado. Cepeda won by KO in round 2 versus Redcatch. White won by points versus Garces. Isaacs won by points versus Correja. Bokzika won by points versus Ocampo. Hickford won by points versus Martinez. Franken won by points versus Amilov. McCormack won by TK round 2 versus Brodsky. Cairns won via points versus Gregores. Abdullah won via a decision versus Stewart to become Commonwealth Featherweight Champion. Noakes won by a stoppage around 8 versus Segler to remain EBU European Lightweight Champion. And, not one of the biggest Queensberry cards, but they're always ticking over with nice little shows and building up fighters. And Abdullah keeping on progressing the way that he is, going to another Commonwealth title. It's great to see the progression he's had after I spoke to him, interviewed him a long time ago now, and like I say, his development has been excellent, and I'd love to see, big fights come towards him now as the lightweight division is still, of course, stacked, and opportunities should be coming. I mean, the featherweight division, my apologies. Of course, featherweight division for him, it's not really that stacked, to be honest, but hopefully we can see him progress now and go on to bigger fights, maybe main event his own card, and after that fight, which was another very entertaining performance from him, I believe he could go on to main event one of these York Hall shows before he goes on to then fight even higher level, maybe even European next for him. And then the Noakes one, like I said, the lightweight division is a stacked division. He's been calling out Mark Chamberlain for a while. Probably won't happen for a little bit, but you never know, that could happen with, of course, His Excellency loving Mark Chamberlain. But it's another great breaking down performance from him, every time just wearing you down. Got solid fundamentals all round, an excellent fighter in my opinion, and has potential to really go a long way. I think he just needs to, maybe one more European fight and then get out of that European pool, because I think you can stay in there for a bit too long. And I think, like I say, if he has more than one more there, then he possibly could be waiting around there a bit too long. But we'll have to wait and see. But nonetheless, these are tough opponents that he's going through, and he's really beating them convincingly and improving with each fight still. Moving on. Dove won via decision versus Villegas. Medeiros won via TKO in round 3 versus Buzolin. Ingram won by TKO round 3, won via TKO round 5 versus Stewart. Howling won via decision versus Dudek. Sedano won via TKO round 5 versus Gogokia. Brown won via decision versus Bravia. And another great Most Valuable Promotions or Most Valuable Prospects card, and they've got some really good talent. I think Brown is an excellent talent, to be honest, and I think as a Puerto Rican type fighter, he is one of these really good up and becoming Puerto Rican type fighters. And I think, like I mentioned, they've got some great prospects coming through. It's really nice to see how they are putting on these shows to really encourage and bring eyes to these younger guys in the zones, of course, giving them a platform. And I believe America and Puerto Rican and all that area have great talent, of course, and it is interesting to see how Most Valuable Promotions have gone a completely different route to that of Misfits. And when they were first having their events, they were perhaps looking more at having some more Misfits types fighters on there and their shows and stuff, but now they go through cards which are just genuinely just prospect fighters coming up trying to make a name for themselves. And Misfits has its own place, Most Valuable Promotions has its own place, but I am appreciating what they are both doing currently. Neomtron won by majority decision versus Winwood to remain WBA World Minimum Weight Champion. And in general, that was a good fight. I got my prediction wrong. I thought Neomtron wouldn't be able to keep up with the pace in which Winwood would be able to put on. But, after he dropped him, the first time it got called out as a slip. Second 2 times it wasn't called out as that. But Winwood, of course, very tough, very durable. You see that often from these young guys, but I think the actual physical strength of Neom Trong was just too much, and it was a nice performance. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch, to be completely honest. Maybe a couple more fights down the line for Winwood. Of course, this was a very early opportunity in his career, but Neom Trong showing that he's still so dominant in the division, and hopefully we see him be active, be fighting, go on actually fight other champions, and hopefully make a name for himself. I'd love to see the Collazo fight, but I just don't necessarily know if that will happen next or not. Moving on, Perwasi won by unanimous decision versus Bell. Martin won by unanimous decision versus Cameron. Hall won by points versus Miller. Tredera won via points versus Vaytoon. Hill won via points versus Max. Porter won via KO in round 1 versus Mayo. Parker won by split decision versus Kawaza. Daniels won by unanimous decision versus Oluwo to remain IBF World Light Heavyweight Champion, and another very good performance from Daniels. I got my prediction right for this one. I thought that she would be able to set a pace too high for Oluwo and be able to manage the distance better and actually use her speed better, and I was right with pretty much all of that, to be completely honest. Oluwo came in as a bit of a power puncher and a bit of an unknown, but she got found out very quickly from what I believe from Daniels, and it was a very good performance from her. I think she has progressed a lot from when she was fighting before, of course, and now is a proven champion and has put herself in a very good position to be around with the likes of Clarissa Shields and fighters like that, and like I say, putting this light heavyweight division onto the map now, and I think she could be a very tough test for Clarissa Shields, possibly the toughest one around realistically in the weight at the moment. Obviously, it's not the most stacked of weight categories, but she is offering something a bit different to him, which I think a lot of the other fighters around are offering. So yeah, great performance from her. Moving on now to the MMA news. Magomedov versus Petrosian, Arslan versus Cerqueira, and Rebecki versus Orolubai will fight October 26th. Moreno will fight Albazi November 2nd, which I think is a great matchup, and it's about time that that's happening. I think it's already been scheduled once and it didn't happen, so now it's happening again. Chalmers has signed with BKFC. Johnson has retired. One of the legends of combat sports has retired. One of the best to ever do it. Had so much silverware. Was one of the smartest fighters ever. Has retired. Well, from one championships. I don't know if anything's going to happen with him elsewhere, but yeah, what an absolute legend, absolute champion, and sad to see the retirement, but of course it's going to happen to everybody. Sexan won by KO in round 2 versus Harrison. Superlek won by KO in round 1 versus Haggerty to become Bantamweight Muay Thai World Champion, and another great name in Muay Thai sports and combat sports in general. Superlek timed a beautiful strike onto Haggerty. I thought it would be an absolute war of a fight, to be completely honest, this one, but Haggerty just got walked onto a shot. Shows the timing, the power, the brilliance of that Superlek, but it was sad to see Haggerty what happened, but I still believe there's a lot left for Haggerty to give. Just now Superlek has just shot himself into more stardom, I believe, and really is making more and more of a name for himself with every fight, such as similar to these other great Muay Thai fighters, and yeah, he's really an amazing fighter. Now, I believe has two belts now and everything, so yeah, it's just brilliant. Nurmagomedov won via Namassine versus Shabili to remain Bellator lightweight champion. Another guy who's just really progressing well and has a big name for himself, and he's of course not in the UFC. I believe he doesn't want to fight or won't be willing to fight Makhachev, so that's why he's not in the UFC, but he's really becoming a dominant champion in Bellator, and I think it's a great, brilliant fighter, a scary fighter to be completely honest, and it'd be interesting to see where his career might progress, possibly PFL or something like that. Fletcher won via submission in round 2 versus Ramoska. Petrosky won via decision versus Paducah. Amorim won via submission in round 1 versus Demopoulos. Santos won via decision versus Czar. Lima won via decision versus Santos. Dulgarian won via submission in round 2 versus Marot. Padilla won via KO in round 2 versus Rang. Ashmuz won via decision versus Deek. Durden won via submission round 2 versus Schnell. Garcia won via KO in round 1 versus Nelson. Silva won via decision versus Andrade. Brady won via decision versus Burns, and Schnell has retired. And not a huge card, of course, but a couple of fights which I'll speak about. The Schnell loss was, I think a predicted one, to be completely honest. I think Schnell has good boxing, to be honest, but he's just not physically strong enough to be able to deal with MMA and turn and put it on him. And that submission, that wild ninja type submission, was very interesting to see and impressive that he was able to execute that. The Garcia KO was just great, excellent, kind of destroying work in which, of course, he managed to get a brilliant KO with. And then the Silva Andrade fight was an excellent fight. Andrade's been in great fights in their time, always that kind of like gamekeeper type fight. He's always going to give you a really tough fight. And I think Silva's now put herself in a position not too far away from a title shot herself. Another brilliant name to have around. And then the Brady Burns fight. It's sad to see, what's happened with Burns, but it happens to every fighter. Them just go past that peak, and just I don't think he can get back to the position in which he once was, and that's no discredit to what he's done in his career. But Brady was just physically stronger. I think Burns possibly has better technique in what he's doing, but Brady was, like I say, just physically strong. Was just willing to throw more, and was just, like I say, able to do too much more for what Burns was able to handle at this point in his career. But if this was, a few years ago with Burns, possibly we would have seen a different result. But we'll have to wait and see how Brady progresses as well now. I don't necessarily know who he goes on to fight next. I believe he's called out Ian Gary, but I don't know if that fight's going to happen or not, possibly. But I don't think he's ready for a world title shot next, is what I will say. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy it. Like if you did, like, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.